ready, I'm ready to get in the game. Well, then it's time to pause and play.
Hello, everybody. This is Father Luke Rowicki.
And this is Brother Andrew Torrey.
And this is Pause and Play, your series on discernment. We're calling it All In, and we do have a jingle for you.
Tell me why.
Why is life dealt me this card?
'Cause I'm going
all in. So we got these cards as you've been following our episodes. Brother Andrew's been picking a card out of my hand, and we respond to it, and it's spontaneous and pretty cool. But that's it for the end of this episode. So
that's for the end.
We've
folks.
talked about why discernment is important. We've talked about being aware as something so necessary to even begin the process. If you're not aware of what you're supposed to discern and what's happening in your life and around you, there's nothing to discern. You can't begin to do this reflection.
Isn't there a Disney song about this? Be aware. Right?
Ah, yes. I think in Aladdin.
No, I think I think it's
Lion King.
No, Little Mermaid? No, Lion King. That's right.
Is like a Scar was like discerning whether he should follow his vocation to a monastic life or to
to kill
something more like apostolic.
Yeah, like to kill the lion.
Yeah, he's like a kill Mufasa or not, and so that's actually not good discernment because that's between a good and evil. So we'll get into that later. But you have to be aware, and so that was what we talked about last episode. Hope you caught that episode. If not, check it out. This third episode, we talked about it kind of at the end, that you need to be aware of who you are. And so we're going to start with a really good quote that Pope Francis brings up in his speech. This is mostly coming from his talk on October 5th. And so we're putting it out there in case you do want to follow along as we speak about these amazing messages on discernment. Pope Francis believes this is so important for our world today. So we're going to continue going deeper and deeper into his message on discernment, which he takes from St. Ignatius of Loyola. Brother Andrew, what is that quote that we thought would be like a great way to kick off this episode on self-knowledge?
So he quotes an American spiritual author.
Who's a Jesuit.
Who is a Jesuit. His name is Father Thomas Green. He wrote this book called Weeds Among the Wheat. I've never read it. It's been on my list for a while. But this is what he says.
It's very good.
Have you read it? Yeah.
Yep.
So this is what Father Thomas Green says that the Pope said. I have come to the conviction that the greatest obstacle to true discernment and to real growth in prayer is not the intangible nature of God, but the fact that we do not know ourselves sufficiently and do not even want to know ourselves as we really are. Almost all of us hide behind a mask, not only in front of others, but also when we look in the mirror.
So break that down for us, Brother Andrew. Break that down for us. What did that just say? My mind just spinning.
Your mind is spinning. All right, so Father Thomas says that, discernment, the biggest problem isn't about like, who's God or like, what is he saying to me? No.
Does it need to be apophatic or cataphatic? Can we really say anything about God? Is he good? Is he not good? Is he beyond good?
Oh my gosh, my head is spinning right now.
Wait, that's not what we're talking about. Discernment is not that complicated, folks. Green, Tommy G, take it away.
Tommy G says that the biggest problem is we don't know who we are. We don't know ourselves sufficiently. And even when we think we know ourselves, we usually have a mask on and we sort of tell ourselves who maybe we'd like to be. We sort of hide behind a mask, not only in front of others, but when we look in the mirror, even when we're by ourselves. We say, oh yeah, I don't have that problem, or no, I'm going to be fine, or I'm good, or no. We don't know ourselves. Because if we can't admit to difficulties that we have, honestly, or things that are ugly about us, or maybe the opposite problem, maybe we have a false humility and we don't recognize the good talents that we have. If we're not able to come to know who we truly are, then, well, that's the biggest problem about discernment. That's what Father Green says. And that's what Pope Francis talks about.
And this is something so exciting that each one of us is this universe, like this completely irreputable, unique masterpiece of God. You're made in the image and likeness of God. You're an entire world. If you spent your whole life digging into who you are, you still never finish. Like your most profound identity, your rich personality, the desires that are in your hearts, you are so amazingly amazing. Each one of you. And here's the thing, like that could then lead to, Father and brother, you just tell me to like be self-centered and focus on myself. And like, doesn't sound Christian. Like Like, why should I spend more time thinking about myself? Let's go out there and do something. And then here, Pope Francis follows this Tommy G quote, Thomas Green. Sorry, no, don't try to be, I don't know he's disrespectful, but he says, forgetting God's presence in our life goes hand in hand with our ignorance of ourselves, ignoring God and ignoring ourselves, ignorance of our personality traits and our deepest desires. If you don't know yourself, if you're this total mystery, this enigma to yourself, you don't know what makes you tick, what gets you out of bed in the morning, what you get excited about, what your interests are, what you love, what you hate. Like you're like God trying to speak to you is going to be impossible because he's put those desires in you. Your desires are different than your siblings and from your friends. And so let's begin getting to know ourselves. Let's walk through this speech of Pope Francis. Like, what is it that we need to know about ourselves? Because then, and we'll get to that in a future episode, then we can really get to know who God is and what he's trying to tell us. Like Pope Francis says there are like passwords we need to know. We need to enter into who you are. This is where the discernment gets really cool. Like it really is an adventure.
Cool. This is really cool because we're all so different, right? And you know how the game Telephone, so like you have this whole, I don't know, like line of people or circle of people, and like you say one thing like the Queen of Hearts is in the dining room jumping on rollerblades and eating cake.
With a
candlestick.
Say that
one phrase with a candlestick. And so you say that phrase, and then by the time and then each person says the phrase to the next person, but you can't hear, you can't hear, it's all like whispering. And then by the time you get to the very end, the phrase is completely different, right?
Candlestick has now become Snickers bar.
And the Queen of Spades is now the King of Clubs.
The dining room is now the arcade.
In Mongolia. So completely different. So what the point is that we can kind of hear this phrase that's said to us, but sometimes we don't look at it objectively. We hear it through our language, through what we want to hear, through what, I don't know, just whatever, like subjective elements that sort of condition us, right? And that's normal because we all are sort of conditioned by our personality. We're sort of affected by the way that we think, our habits, our personality, psychology. And so we have to be aware of that because there can be objective things that we learn about the world, about God, about other people, whatever. And we have to be aware of how we receive that information. Okay? This might sound like a complicated idea, but let me see if I can try to make it simpler.
Well, let's even use, but Andrew, as you're thinking, let's use the image of the autopilot. Like,
okay. Oh, yeah.
Because like, why don't you go into that? Because we both love that image that he uses.
Yes.
Because it deactivating autopilot. Like, how does that, like, what does that look like? It sort of reminds me of what we talked about and what Pope Francis talked about, like just being aware and Saint Ignatius, what he taught us about realizing there's like some opposing powers and desires in me and stuff like that. If you're an autopilot, like you need to deactivate that. You need to snap out of that, just routine and kind of going through things. And otherwise you're not really even stopping to understand, why am I picking up this pen? Like what did I just do? And there's certain things you don't have to discern and think so much about, like why I picked up this pen. But there are other things that you have habits. You don't even know why you just picked up your phone. You don't even know why you just are so sad about that thing. You don't, because we're on autopilot all the time because we're all so busy.
Yeah. And we have to deactivate the autopilot, right? Because that allows us to acquire awareness of how we act, like the way that we act, the way that we perceive things, the way that we listen to people. It helps us to become aware of the feelings that are dwelling inside of us, the thoughts that keep coming back up to us, usually unconsciously. So deactivate the autopilot, folks. Like no more telephone game, right? Like it helps us to acquire objectivity, right? We always have this sort of subjective element that affects us the way we affect the world, right? Because that's just the way we are, right? We all have our own like way of looking at the world, and so there's never like this purely objective reality, like totally objective. No, it doesn't exist. But when we deactivate the autopilot, like the Pope says, then it's like, oh, it helps us to see like what's actually going on inside of me, in my heart, in my mind, in my will. Why am I majoring in geology? I don't even like geology. Like, hopefully that's nobody's case, you know. but like in these big and like for these big situations that people find themselves in, like you're dating. Well, why are you dating? Like, do you really want to get married? Can you imagine yourself? Well, I don't know. I mean, like maybe in the future. Like, well, okay, well, what do you need in order to get like? So like, deactivate the autopilot. Don't just go through the hoops, right?
Like you brought up feelings, and again, I want to go back to like just this image that came to me as you were talking the first time. Like, we're each this very rich personality. You're not like anyone else that's ever been on earth before and will ever come after you. Start to unravel that and unwrap who you are. And he says it also requires that we distinguish between emotions and spiritual faculties. And like, just to begin to understand the amazing person and being that you are, like, there are certain things that you can do that animals can't. And as much as Brother Andrew loves animals, as he's talked about last episode, they cannot have abstract thoughts. Like, they don't have an intelligence like man has an intelligence. They have this knowledge that kind of is sticks with like what they see around them and like the instincts that they have. And then we have this will that isn't just instinct like an animal has. It's deeper than that. Like, I can sacrifice my life for someone else. I can offer my sandwich even though I'm hungry to this person next to me because I love them. I can, as a dad, work 9 to 5 all the time, just daily grind because I love my family. I want to put food on the table for them. There's this depth that we have, and Pope Francis says, like, let's begin to be aware of that in us, because there's a difference between I feel and I want. That's what he says. Or I feel and I feel like I want, or I feel and I'm convinced. That's different. And if you're living your life just, I feel like doing this and I do it. I feel like doing that. I feel like binging this new series and I just do it. That's different than if you stopped, reflected, and said, I'm convinced that this is the best thing for me. I want, like, my heart, my desire, my will, not instinct, not feelings, but I want to spend these next 10 hours binging this series. Like, it's gonna be different. Like, if that's really what is best for you and you're convinced, awesome, do it. But if it's just like you're kind of escaping from something, I don't feel like doing my homework, so I feel like this. That's already like this step towards self-knowledge that is key. And then a temptation comes into that. We can get into that, Brother Angie, if you want to do that. But this, I want to encourage all of us to just recognize the amazing person and creature that each one of us is. That God has given you so much to live your life to the full, but we got to know that. We got to discover who we are philosophically, like through anthropology, but just like you're on an existential level. Brother Andrew, you're not like your brother, Father Nathan. You're not like Nick. You're not like, you're like them, but you're so different. You are, Father Nathan's very musical too. I don't know if, Nick, oh no, you're all three very musical. But like, there's things that
we're all different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although you do kind of have like a similar laugh too. Like, I was just with Father Nathan recently. Anyways, there's things about you that is beautiful. We're a family, but everyone, like, I encourage you to like discover the amazing creature that you are.
Yeah. So you talking about like discovering like who you are, remind me of this amazing quote from Saint Augustine. So some of you guys might know that Saint Augustine is one of the greatest minds that the church has ever had. He wrote so much. Like, he's one of the authors that has written the most of all the authors that have ever lived. He's wrote a ton. And he has this amazing quote reflecting on his conversion experience. So he's thinking about what he went through when he was, basically a pagan, and he converted to God. And in this quote, he's speaking to God. Let's listen to this. You were within, and I was without. You called, you shouted, and you broke through my deafness. You flashed, you shone, and you dispelled my blindness. So this is so cool how Augustine says that God was within, but Augustine, was without. And so what does this mean? This means that in his conversion process, St. Augustine became aware of who he was, of the deepest part of who he was. And what's the deepest part? The identity of God being inside of him, of God dwelling inside of him. That's the key that led Augustine to realize, wow, you were there with me this whole time while I was suffering, and wow, you're so gentle, you're so humble, you don't want to force yourself on me, you're so loving. And so this was the key to his conversion experience. And just to throw another quote out at you guys, since you guys love quotes, because this self-knowledge experience is really captured also by another thinker called Blaise Pascal. And Pascal said that he's talking about like another theme that we always talk about is like, silence, being still, pausing. Pascal says this, all right? Let's see if you guys can take this quote. It's pretty strong. I have often said that the sole cause of man's unhappiness is that he does not know how to stay quietly in his room. He does not know how to stay quietly in his room. How many of us can do that today? Like, there's so much noise. Like, how are we going to be able to listen to what's going on inside of us, to become aware of why we're choosing the things that we're choosing, why we're have the goals that we have, why am I angry today? Why am I cranky? Do I need to be that way? Can I analyze myself a little bit to see why I'm in this bad mood and maybe get rid of the ideas that or sort of calm those down and then have a good day? So discernment isn't just about these big dramatic decisions like a conversion experience of St. Augustine or obtaining the ultimate goal of happiness in life, which we're all seeking. It's also to analyze yourself day by day. Okay, how am I doing now? How can I be a little bit better? What is God telling me in my situation now? And that passes through self-knowledge, becoming aware, being a person that goes within, not without.
And God had to be very dramatic with St. Ignatius. He had to use a cannonball to kind of help him to stay in a room and be quiet, as Blaise was telling us. We don't hopefully need a cannonball to smash into our leg in order to slow us down, deactivate autopilot, and take time to discover God, that he's not way up there. And even going back to the Tommy G quote, that ignorance of God is not because wow, God is, you're infinite and I have to read all these books in the library to finally discover just a little bit about who you are. No, ignorance of God comes because we're ignorant of who we are. And we haven't, and why are we ignorant of who we are? Because we haven't taken that time in silence in our rooms behind a closed door to learn more about what moves us and what desires we have. And I think it's so true too, because if you don't believe us, if you don't believe Blaise and Augustine and St. Ignatius, and you think, no, I'm perfectly happy. There's Netflix is pumping out these series. I have friends all over the place. I'm on my phone all the time, just I'm in touch with them. They've sent me hilarious memes. And on top of that, I started a cryptocurrency business. And I'm just making millions. I just sit on my couch and I'm just stocks are rising, going through the roof. All those, I'm great. Life is good. But that's a different type. That's a thrill. That's excitement. That's when all that stops, and there's eventually you're gonna get bored of series if you're watching too many. Your friends are gonna be busy, and then that's almost like the cannibal. And now it's what do you do? Because you've been living from excitement to excitement, thing to thing, and it'll leave you empty. That story of Saint Ignatius, when he would think of being a knight and Sir Lancelot, and he would do all these things, and then when that memory faded, he was empty. But if you learn to know yourself and what moves me, and you do things that are meaningful to you, only to you, that could be very different. You could just taking time to walk in a forest. Some people love that. Maybe doing a painting. Some people love that, but it's meaningful for them. Even just I don't know, Sudoku or whatever, but it's I'm taking time to just be by myself in quiet because I love that, because that's something that's mine. Good. That's healthy. Do that. But don't just escape yourself and avoid knowing yourself because you're scared. Thomas Green was saying, we almost don't want to know ourselves. We don't want to know those deep, dark secrets that man, I feel I'm not enough. I feel if people knew me, they wouldn't really like me. I feel like I'm not lovable. I'm ashamed of myself. I'm like, no, well, man, we have a lot to unpack, people, as we continue this series of really being all in. But hopefully this episode has helped you just realize like it begins by knowing yourself, and we're here for you. We're gonna try to help you take that on and have no fear, because fear comes from the devil. We're not gonna let fear guide us anymore. We're done with that.
No, no, no.
But Andrew,
All right.
I'm holding up, if you're just listening to our podcast, I'm holding up 3 cards to the screen as we began this episode by saying we picked up the king and the queen were actually the first 2 cards chosen. So now Brother Andrew has to pick one, and this is going to him.
Oh man.
So
I know one of those cards and I don't want that one.
So it's either gonna be anecdote, joke, or what the other one was like advice to Jack. Okay, so
advice to Jack. What the heck? All right, I want the one that's all the way on your. Wait a minute, you're moving these.
Okay.
I want the one that's all the way to your left. It's not the Joker. Oh yeah, anecdote.
Okay, yes. Anecdote. So, Brother Andrew, this is like I just want you to give us an update of what's been what have you been up to in Rome?
Oh, well, we're recording this episode at the end of January, beginning of February, right? And we're in exam period right now in Rome.
Ooh, yeah, that's right.
I know. I've been studying a lot. I have 6 exams altogether. I've done 4 of them, and I have 2
it's a heavy
more.
Load.
So yeah, it's good. It's a lot to study. Some of it's like to use a really visceral image. It's like you're cramming a bunch of food and then you're vomiting it.
Okay.
Because
I want to sign me up.
You have like 3 or 4 days to study, cram, and then you just say as much as you can, and then you repeat for 5 more times.
And are you vomiting, to use your image, in English or Italian?
Let's see. So far, it's just been Italian. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think most of my exams have been in Italian. I study in English, but
you regurgitate in Italian?
I regurgitate in Italian, yeah.
All right, we're going to stop using this image because maybe someone's like on their way to lunch as they listen to it. So.
Yeah. So yeah, that's been my daily bread.
Okay, and you're still director of Champ. You're kind of training in someone.
Still, yep, training in the new guy little by little. So there's three other brothers here that direct the music with me, and 2 of them are younger brothers, and one of them is studying theology like I am. So he's going to take over, hopefully. I think I've told him already. But yeah, and finishing up these last 6 months of theology. And one big thing is, I guess we have to kind of wrap up here, but this can be the final fun comment, is that I have been officially approved to be ordained a deacon.
How did we not start with that? This series, this is amazing. This is incredible. This is after 13 years.
13 years? 14. No, 14 years.
For you?
14. It's been 14 years.
Oh, you're right. No, sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Because you did 2 more years of exactly.
So you're all invited. It's going to be in my home parish, my diaconate ordination. It's going to be in my home parish in Slidell, Louisiana on September 30th. So you're all invited. Please come to my home parish, Louisiana, September 30th for the diaconate ordination. And and last thing, and I'll let you finish, Father Luke. I'm so excited because I have an uncle. No, he's a cousin. He's my dad's first cousin, who's a bishop actually. My dad's first cousin is a bishop in Detroit, an auxiliary bishop, and he's going to ordain me. So I'm so excited about that.
Oh, that's incredible! And when did I meet him? He was in Rome.
He was in Rome for ordinations.
Or maybe our profession. Like at some point he was.
Not for my profession. Maybe for an ordination he was. Yeah.
Maybe so. Yeah, maybe that's what it was. But or maybe for Father Nathan's ordination. Is that?
He was in for Father Nathan's ordination.
Because I met him. Yeah. Great guy.
Yeah,
not your uncle, not your cousin, but your dad's first cousin.
Twice removed. Exactly.
But he's a bishop and he's going to be there. That's awesome, Angela. Well, congratulations on behalf of all of us here at Pause and Play.
Thank
you. Remember, folks, we're never going to be that type of person that just pauses.
because we're also going to play too.
So get pumped. God bless.